See, you shouldn't believe your own press. Seeing Hillary make a reappearance has made me consider this issue again, believing one's own press, which was key to the Hillary Clinton campaign's failure. They believed their own press. They believed numbers that they were spinning up that made her suddenly popular. When it came to younger people, she just had no inroads. There was nothing she did or anything that like people would be able to identify, like, oh yeah, I remember when she appeared on that show with that black man's show and played a saxophone, you know. See, that's good politics. See, that's why Bill was likable and was able to accomplish what he accomplished, even though he was no genius. It's just that he knew politics. So he knew to go on the Arsenio Hall show and play a saxophone, which was an absolutely iconic image after that. And it was because Arsenio Hall was one of the most popular shows on television at the time. And a lot of people like forgetting the popularity of Arsenio Hall at the time, because at the time it was the early 90s, and a lot of the major lineup for comedy, major lineup for evening shows has fundamentally just been forgotten about. That was around the time that, if I remember correctly, it was David Letterman took over the evening, and David Letterman ended up ruling the evening. MTV Raps was still on, and one of the most popular shows on television at the time. The reason why is because America, the Generation X, was just a different lot, and we were into different stuff. And there was the thing of people being extremely into you grew up in a multiracial, multi-ethnic, suburban America, very likely, if you're Gen X. So this is why, like, a lot of the wokies now talking about how everything is racist. It's like the Arsenio Hall show, like when Clinton appeared on Arsenio Hall, like, come on now. So and that's why these are people believing their own press. They want to act like the 1990s were the 1960s, and they weren't. In fact, it was these cheap copies of 1960s styles and events, whole genres of music that were brought back from the 1960s in the 1990s, whole styles. And I could think of, Contempo having daisies, all this stuff with daisies all over them, because that was the big thing among the house music scene in New York years prior, but it took a while to filter out to California. And so so there's one so you would see this kind of stuff in stores, but it didn't necessarily mean people actually wore that stuff outside of the store. And so you might see a product like this, but it doesn't mean people wore it. It doesn't mean people that's what was happening. So this is why another part of believing one's own press. So things that one would think mattered because they know about that from that time, but they don't realize, like, well, no, but that wasn't that big of a deal back then. Like, you might know about that, but that wasn't, nobody was really concerned about that. And so the believing one's own press about the oppression of homosexuals and stuff like that, when it comes to Gen X, this just wasn't really a thing at all. So that would have pertained to the entire 80s, 90s, 2000s, and it's 2020, so that's 2 decades as well. That there's just nothing there. They're making this up. That there's some horrible oppression of the G and the Qs and the Ts. The T's literally appeared like in 2019. I mean, these people were extremely rare, and they've always been mostly odd white guys, big, ugly, odd white men, and in particular, they're unattractive white men. That it's like a little odd, like them dressed up as women is odd because of how unattractive and how not like women they look. And when you grew up with this in San Francisco, it just was one of those things that you just knew about. It was just normal, like knowing how the gay men would have sex in public bathrooms and bushes in Golden Gate Park. They just did that. It wasn't like they were homeless. That was just how they rolled. They were crackheads. They would do meth and crack, and you were like, what the fuck, and super hard drugs and stuff, and you were just like, what the hell, and it's like, no, but that's how they roll. They're self-medicating because they take dick in the ass. Like, I mean, it's like at a certain point, obviously you got to do something. So the people believing their own press on the left is becoming something that now is a severe weakness of the left. That you all believed sort of your own press about crime statistics. So you'd figure out ways of having, of kind of, oh, well, according to this, crime has ticked down in general, and say, oh, really? And then you start looking, and you look it up, and it's like, well, why? Okay, you have more carjackings than ever. Oh, well, but you see, arrests for, public drug use have fallen since we no longer consider it a crime. It's like, oh, okay, good, or, well, now there's not as many parking violations because people don't bring their cars to the city because of the rising in carjackings. So crime has fallen. You see, not as many motorists are speeding anymore because they won't come to the fucking city and get carjacked. And then there's issues of like somebody was actually explaining to me that they're like, no, one of the things with Chicago is because of its layout, most of what's ailing Chicago is in very specific parts of Chicago. And he's like, this one area, that's the capital city. As long as that area is untouched by crime, Chicago won't change. And it really, it just, so they don't believe their own press. They believe their own press because they can't see through their own grift. When it's, oh, well, we don't tell people about these crime problems because then they won't send their kids here to go to college. Their kids, and this is fundamentally like having somebody, on staycation for 4 years, pumping money into a local economy. If you don't tell them how bad the crime is, well, they're the sucker then. I mean, that's it. They're the sucker. They're, because that's the game that's being played. And people who watch this with like Colin Flaherty talking about a lot of these cities and then saying like, and look, another college student carjacked and murdered, or another college student, oh, let's see what their comment is. Well, maybe if I wasn't such a rich college student, this wouldn't have happened to me. I should be a poor person, like this hungry person who beat me with their pistol and took my stuff. Some truly poltroonish level of just garbage mind. Just ultra poltroon garbage head people that believe their own press. that they're a part of some class that owes poor violent people their stuff, and so then it's that we got to see for years, and keeps happening, that the left keeps thinking poor people have to be violent. That's the issue with it. The poverty makes you crazy and violent, which says a lot about really the way that the left really thinks, like what the deal is when they feel aggrieved, what they really believe, what are their virtues. When they're aggrieved, well, they believe that the poor commit crime because, well, poverty makes you just criminal anger feelings. And so it's like, if they're beset upon, if they're like, oh, the system is so mean to me, criminal anger feelings are justified, I'm a middle class rioter, I'm liberating. The belief in your own press, believing your own press, makes it like beautifully clear at some point, like this is what this person must be if they're thinking that this makes logical sense. This is what this person must be if this is logical, if this is some form of rationally derived ethics. Hillary Clinton was never popular. Donald Trump was. His ideas were actually really solid. You guys have had nothing. You can't offer anything worthwhile. And then when it comes down to it, you're kind of cowardly, dishonest people. And that now, one of the beautiful parts about this is how you're so cowardly and so dishonest, you actually have to use the secret police to openly coerce people who don't think like you. That you celebrate violence toward people who have different points of view than you, in a way that, such that, the right had a real problem with such behavior, and conservatives have a real problem with such behavior. A lot of the right, it just doesn't do that the same way. The left has a genuine joy that it takes in seeing bad things happen to people that they don't agree with, or even perceive to. That's then the other one, is the just open anti-white bigotry thing of something bad happens to a white person, and you see all these leftist, quote-unquote, activists and journalists online jump for joy. Anything that happens to Trump, these people jump for joy about it. When it's obvious that, this New York district attorney just thinks that what's appropriate as a punishment, just to seize Donald Trump's stuff, just to seize his companies. There's no precedent for this. No precedent whatsoever. They're not saying we're going to pull your corporate papers. No, they're saying that somehow there's some way that taking possession of his company's assets makes sense. That combing through the lives of his children, it makes sense. You have shown that you believe in the communist idea of give me the man and I'll come up with the crime. You believe your own press about what good people you are, and you're not. And that's the beauty of it now. Now that you've shown us that the government is just this thing you'll always use against us, and that you've shown it that's what you think government is for. That if you're a liberal, if you're a progressive, especially if you're a progressive, if you're one of the progressive Democrats, you think that government is for gaining power so you can actually terrorize and coerce people who don't agree with you. And it's really, it just don't even agree with you. If you guys could, you would go after Tulsi Gabbard. You would go after her until she stopped speaking publicly. And that's how you all roll. because that's not so deep down, that's the kind of people you really are. That's what your party attracts. That's the kind of people you really are. And that you actually have to play naive. You have to play like there's some naivete about it, that you're not using the FBI and the CIA to coerce people into thinking like you. And it's just one of those things now. It's like, well, oh my gosh, this squirrel's playing with me. What are you playing with me, buddy? Look at this guy. Look at this vicious little bastard. Playing around with me. What, you want me to chase you? Where are we going? Oh? Look at him. What? You want to mess with me? What? I'm El Gorobo. You cannot mess with me. Dude, I love squirrels. I think squirrels are hilarious. So, I am the mighty El Gorobo. I've been thinking about this a little, and because it's the weakness now that's crippling the left to a great extent. It's really great that they don't, because the right comes out of the MMORPG world that you always have a weak spot. You can't be Omni. There is no Omni tank. Omni tank is the weakest tank. It's like, that's it. And you always have a weak spot. And this is just something about the way that the left in America has been thinking. And I think it's because so many of these people are like Sam Harris or Bill Maher, that these are just punk-ass middle-classers that don't have real grit anymore. And so they don't really understand, they don't understand the working class. They don't understand people who are like the wagies that, wagies with internet. They can't grasp this idea of like, oh yeah, no, these people actually know what they're talking about. They're perfectly well informed. They have to believe their own press. All right, later.